So recap.
After that short break.
Recap. Last chapter, they finally got Stefan out of the well, and they brought him back to his place, and they couldn't find Mrs. Flowers, which Elena thought was odd. And they got him back up to his room, and all her friends finally see how he lives, and it's very, like, odd to them because it's very minimalistic.
Well, and then also he had gotten really angry and thrown everything all over the room, so that probably didn't help.
Didn't help. And then Elena convinced all her friends to leave and go to get Bonnie's sister, who works in a clinic. Sorry. And to come back and look at him to make sure he doesn't need to go to a hospital because he was refusing it. And
well, actually, Elena was refusing it too.
For him, yeah. Because it was either tell his secret or just defend him, basically. She defended him. And so they all left. And then Elena, like, pricked her finger, so there was blood coming out. So he drained Elena pretty good of blood so he could come back and look better. So by the time Bonnie's sister came, he looked well enough not to go to a hospital right away. Sister came, checked him out, wanted to do vital signs. He said no, but she insisted that he should probably go to see a doctor in the morning if he still didn't feel well or what have you. And then she looked at Elena and asked if Elena was anemic because she was pretty pale from all the blood that was just drained that nobody knows about other than Stefan and her. And, yeah.
That's pretty much it?
Pretty much it.
Okay.
Board?
Oh, yes. Theory board pretty much hasn't changed.
Nope.
Meredith will get killed off. See more of Bonnie's powers develop, and Catherine's alive. Woohoo!
On to chapter 5.
November 2nd, Saturday. Dear Diary, this morning I woke up and I felt so strange. I don't know how to describe it. On one hand, I was so weak that when I tried to stand up, my muscles wouldn't support me. But on the other hand, I felt pleasant. So comfortable, so relaxed, as if I were floating on a bed of golden light. I don't care that I never moved, if I ever moved again. Then I remembered Stefan and I tried to get up, but Aunt Judith put me back in bed. She said Bonnie and Meredith had left hours ago and that I'd been so fast asleep they couldn't wake me. She said what I needed was rest. So here I am again. Aunt Judith brought the TV in, but I don't care about watching it. I'd rather lie here and write, or just lie here. I'm expecting Stefan to call. He told me he would, or maybe he didn't. I can't remember. When he does call, I have to. November 3rd, Sunday, 10:30 p.m. I just read over yesterday's entry, and I'm shocked. What was wrong with me? I broke off in the middle of a sentence and now I don't even know what I was going to say. And I didn't explain about the new diary or anything. I must have completely spaced out. Anyway, this is the official start of the new diary. I brought this blank book at the drugstore. It's not as beautiful as my other one, but it will have to do. I've given up hope of ever seeing my old one again. Whoever stole it isn't going to bring it back. But when I think about them reading it, all my inner thoughts and my feelings about Stefan, I want to kill them, while simultaneously dying of humiliation myself. I'm not ashamed of the way I feel about Stefan, but it's private, and there are things in there about the way it is when we kiss, when he holds me, that I know he wouldn't want anybody else to read. Of course, it hasn't got anything about his secret in it. I hadn't found that out yet. It wasn't until I did that I really understood him and we got together, really together at last. Now we're part of each other. I feel as if I've been waiting for him all my life. Maybe you think I'm terrible for loving him considering what he is. He can be violent, and I know there are some things in his past that he's ashamed of, but he couldn't never be violent towards me, and his past is over. He has so much guilt and hurt inside. I want to heal him. I don't know what will happen to me. I'm just so glad that he's safe. I went to the boarding house today and found out that the police had been there yesterday. Stefan was still weak and couldn't use his powers to get rid of them. But they didn't accuse him of anything. They just asked questions. Stefan says they acted friendly, which makes me suspicious. What all the questions really boil down to is, where were you the night the old man was attacked under the bridge, and the night Vicky Bennett was attacked in the ruined church, and the night Mr. Tanner was killed at the school? They don't have any evidence against him, so the crimes started right after he came to Fell's church. So what? That's not proof of anything. So he argued with Mr. Tanner that night. Again, so what? Everybody argued with Mr. Tanner. So he disappeared after Mr. Tanner's body was found. He's back now, and it's pretty clear that he was attacked himself, by the same person who committed the other crimes. Mary told the police about the condition he was in, and if they ever asked us, Matt and Bonnie and Meredith and I can all testify how we found him. There's no case against him at all. Stefan and I talked about that and about other things. It was so good to be with him again, even if he did look white and tired. He still didn't remember how Thursday night ended, but most of it was as I suspected. Stefan went to find Damon Thursday night after he took me home. They argued. Stefan ended up half dead in a well. It didn't take a genius to figure out what happened in between. I still haven't found him. I still haven't told him that I went looking for Damon in the graveyard Friday morning. I suppose I'd better do it tomorrow. I know he's going to be upset, especially when he hears what Damon said to me. Well, that's all. I'm tired. This diary is going to be well hidden for obvious reasons. Elena paused, looked at the last line on the page, then she said, P.S. I wonder who our new European teacher will be. She tucked the diary under her mattress and turned on the light. Bet you it's Alaric. I bet you it's Alaric.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Me too.
Elena walked down the hall. Do you think he's going to be still a vampire hunter, or do you think it's just going to be like...
I think he'll probably still be a vampire hunter.
Okay.
Because I think that they would want to keep that in the TV show line as well. So I think he's still a vampire hunter.
Because I was wondering if he would end up with... well, maybe he won't end up with Elena's aunt because she's with Robert.
But Robert, I think, will end up dying.
Oh, is that a new theory?
That's a new theory. We'll put it on later.
Okay.
But yeah, I think he's going to get killed, and then Alaric will move on in, because I'm so Alaric. I'm so team Alaric for her aunt.
Elena walked down the hallway in a curious vacuum. At school, she usually peppered with greetings from all sides. Is hi Elena after hi Elena wherever she went. But today, eyes slid away virtuously as she approached, or people suddenly became very busy doing something that required them to keep their backs to her. It had been happening all day. She paused at the doorway of the European history classroom. There were several students still sitting down, and at the chalkboard was a stranger.
I see the name.
He looked almost a student himself. He had sandy hair, worn a little long, and the build of an athlete. Across the board, he had written Alaric K. Saltzman. As he turned around, Elena saw his boyish smile. He went from smiling as Elena sat down and the other students filed in. Stefan was among them, and his eyes met Elena's as he took a seat beside her, but they didn't speak. No one was talking. The room was dead silent. Bonnie sat down on Elena's other side. Matt was only a few desks away, but he kept looking straight ahead. The last two people who came in were Caroline Forbes and Tyler Smallwood. They walked in together, and Elena didn't like the look on Caroline's face. She knew that cat-like smile and those narrowed green eyes all too well. Tyler's handsome, rather freshly features were shining with satisfaction. The discoloration under his eyes caused by Stefan's fist was almost gone. Okay, I'll start off. Why don't we put these desks in a circle? Elena's attention snapped back to the stranger at the front of the room. He was still smiling. Come on, let's do it. That way we can see each other's faces when we talk, he said. Silently, the students obeyed. The stranger didn't sit in Mr. Tanner's desk. Instead, he pulled a chair to the circle and straddled it backwards. Now, he said, I know you all must be curious about me. My name is on the board, Alaric K. Saltzman, but you can call me Alaric. I'll tell you a little more about me later, but first I have a chance to get to talk to you. Today's probably a difficult day for most of you. Someone you cared about is gone, and that must hurt. I want to give you a chance to open up and share these feelings with me and your classmates. I want you to try to get in touch with the pain, then we can start to build a relationship on trust. Now, who would like to go first? They stared at him. No one so much as moved an eyelash. Well, let's see. What about you? Still smiling, he gestured encouragingly to a pretty, fair-faced girl. Tell us your name and how you feel about what's happened. Flustered, the girl stood. My name is Sue Carlson, and she took a deep breath and went doggedly on. And I feel scared, because whoever this maniac is, he's still on the loose, and the next time, it could be me. She sat down. Thank you, Sue. I'm sure a lot of your classmates share your concern. Now, do I understand that some of you are actually there when the tragedy occurred? Desks creaked as students shifted uneasily, but Tyler Smallwood stood up, his lips drawing back into a strong, white-teethed smile. Most of us were there, he said. His eyes flickered towards Stefan. Elena could see the other people following his gaze. I got there right after Bonnie discovered the body, and what I feel is concern for our community. There's a dangerous killer on the streets, and so far, nobody's done anything to stop him. And he broke off. Elena wasn't sure how, but she felt Caroline had signaled for him to do it. Caroline tossed back gleaming auburn hair and recrossed her legs as Tyler took his seat again. Okay, thank you. So most of you were here. There. That makes it doubly hard. Can we hear from a person who actually found the body? Is Bonnie here? He looked around. Bonnie raised her hand slowly and stood. I guess I discovered the body, she said. I mean, I was the first person who knew that he was really dead and not just faking. Alaric looked slightly startled. Not just faking? Did he often fake being dead? There were titters as he flashed a boyish smile again. Elena turned and looked at Stefan, who was frowning. No, said Bonnie. You see, he was a sacrifice at the haunted house. So he was covered in blood anyway because it was fake blood. And that was partially my fault because he didn't want to put it on. And I told him he had to do it. He was supposed to be a bloody corpse, but he kept saying it was too messy and he didn't until Stefan came and argued with him. She stopped. I mean, we talked to him and he finally agreed to do it, and then the haunted house started. And a little while later, I noticed that he wasn't sitting up and scaring the kids like he was supposed to. And I went over and asked him what was wrong, and he didn't answer. He just kept staring at the ceiling. And then I touched him, and it was terrible. His head just sort of flopped. Bonnie's voice wavered and gave out. She gulped. Elena was standing up, and so were Stefan and Matt and a few other people. Elena reached over to Bonnie. Bonnie, it's okay. Don't. It's okay. The blood got all over my hands. There was blood everywhere, so much blood. She sniffed hysterically. Okay, time out, Alaric Saltzman said. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to distress you that much. I think you need to work through these feelings sometime in the future. It's clear that it's been a pretty devastating experience. He stood up and paced over to the center of the circle, his hands opening and shutting nervously. Bonnie was still sniffling softly. I know, he said, the boyish smile coming back full force. I know I'd like to get our student-teacher relationship off to a good start. Anyway, from the whole atmosphere, how about if you all come around to my place this evening and we can talk about it informally? Maybe we can get to know each other, maybe talk about what happened. You can even bring a friend if you want to. How about that? There was another 30 seconds or so of staring. Then someone said, your place? Oh, yes, I'm forgetting. Stupid of me. I'm staying at the Ramsey boarding house on Magnolia Avenue. He wrote the address on the board. The Ramseys are a friend of mine, and they loan me their house while they're on vacation. I come here from Charlottesville, and your principal asked me Friday to see... I come from Charlottesville, and your principal called me Friday to ask if I could take over here. I jumped at the chance. This is my first real teaching job. Oh, that explains it, said Elena under her breath. Does it? Said Stefan. Anyway, what do you think? Is it a plan? Alaric Saltzman looked around at them. No one had the heart to refuse. They were all scattered. Yeses? Sure's? Great. Then it's settled. I'll provide the refreshments, and we'll get to know each other. Oh, by the way, he opened the grade book and scanned it. In this class, participation takes up half of your final grade. He glanced up and smiled. You can go now. The nerve of him, somebody muttered as Elena went to the door. Bonnie was behind her, but Alaric Saltzman's voice called to her. Will the students who shared with us please stay behind for a minute? Stefan had to leave too. I'd better go check out the football practice, he said. It's probably canceled, but I better go make sure. Elena was concerned. If it's not canceled, do you think you're feeling up to it? I'll be fine, he said evasively, but he noticed that his face was still a little drawn and moved as if he were in pain. Meet you at your locker, he said. She nodded. Then she went to the locker. She saw Caroline nearby with two other girls. 3 pairs of eyes followed Elena's every move as she put away her books. But then Elena glanced up. 2 of them were suddenly looking away. Only Caroline remained staring at her, head slightly cocked as she whispered something to the other girls. Elena had had enough. Slamming her locker, she walked straight towards the group. Hello, Becky. Hello, Sheila, she said. Then, with heavy emphasis, hello, Caroline. Becky and Sheila mumbled, hello, and then added something about having to leave. Elena didn't even turned to watch them slink away. She kept her eyes on Caroline's. "What's going on?" she demanded. "Going on?" Caroline was obviously enjoying this, trying to draw it out as long as possible. "Going on with who?" "With you, Caroline. With everybody. Don't pretend you're not up to something, because I know you are. People have been avoiding me all day, as if I had the plague, and you look like you just won the lottery. What have you done?" Caroline's expression of innocent query slipped, and her smile a feline smile. "I told you when the school year started things were going to be different this year, Elena," she said. "I warned you that your time on the throne might be running out, but this isn't my doing. What's happening is simply natural selection, the law of the jungle." "And just what is happening?" "Well, let's just say going out with a murderer can put a cramp on your social life."
It reminds me of Mean Girls. Like the movie Mean Girls in the Burn book.
Movie. I need to watch that one. Maybe we'll have a movie night.
Yeah, you and I need to watch that. We're doing that. It's happening.
Okay, we'll have a movie night. We'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Elena's chest tightened as Caroline had hit her. For a moment, the desire to hit Caroline back was almost irresistible. Then the blood pounding in her ears. She said through clenched teeth, "That isn't true. Stefan hasn't done anything. The police questioned him, and he was cleared." Caroline shrugged, her eyes now patronizing. "Elena, I've known you since kindergarten," she said, "so I'll give you advice for old time's sake. Drop Stefan. If you do...
You care.
Like you care. More like you're going to go and pick him up. Like, that's exactly what you do.
Yeah. Snake.
If you do it right now, you might avoid being a complete social leper. Otherwise, you might as well buy yourself a little bell to ring on the street." Rage held Elena hostage as Caroline turned and walked away, her auburn hair moving like liquid under the lights. Then Elena found her tongue. "Caroline," the other girl turned back, "are you going to that party at Ramsey's house tonight?" "I suppose so. Why?" "Because I'll be there with Stefan. See you in the jungle." This time Elena was the one to turn away. The dignity of her exit was slightly marred when she saw a slim, shadowed figure at the far end of the hallway. Her step faltered for an instant, but then she drew closer. She recognized Stefan. She knew the smile she gave him was forced, and he glanced back at the lockers and walked side by side out of the school. "So football practice was canceled?" she said. He nodded. "What was that about?" he asked quietly. "Nothing. I asked Caroline if she was going to the party tonight." Elena tilted her head back to look at the gray and dismal sky. "And what were you talking about?" She remembered what he had told her in his room. He could see better than a human and hear better too. "Well, enough to catch the words spoken from 40 feet down the corridor?" "Yes," she said defiantly, still inspecting the clouds. "And that's what made you so angry?" "Yes," she said again in the same tone. She could feel his eyes on her. "Elena, that's not true." "Well, if you can read my mind, you don't have to ask me questions, do you?" They were facing each other now. Stefan was tense, his mouth in a grim line. "You know I wouldn't do that, but I thought you were the one who was so big on honesty in relationships." "All right." Caroline was being her usual bitchy self and shot her mouth off about a murder. "So what? Why do you care?" "Because," said Stefan simply and brutally, "she might be right. Not about the murder, but about you. About you and me. I should have realized this would happen. It's not just her, is it? I've been sensing hostility and fear all day, but I was too tired to try and analyze it. They think I'm the killer, and they're taking it out on you. What they think doesn't matter. They're wrong, and they'll realize that eventually. Then everything will be the way it was again." A wistful smile tugged at the corner of Stefan's mouth. "You really believe that, don't you?" He looked away, and his face hardened. "And what if they don't? What if it only gets worse?" "What are you saying?" "It might be better." Stefan took a deep breath and continued carefully. "It might be better if we don't see each other for a little while. If they think we're not together, they'll leave you alone." She stared at him. "And you think you could do that? Not see me or talk to me for however long?" Thanks.
Yeah.
"If it's necessary, yes. We could pretend we've broken up." His jaw was set. Elena stared another moment. Then she circled him and moved closer, so close that they were almost touching. He had to look down on her, his eyes only a few inches from her own. "There it is," she said. "The only way I'm going to announce to the rest of the school that we've broken up. And that's if you tell me that you don't love me and that you don't want to see me. tell me that, Stefan, right now. Tell me that you don't want to be with me anymore. He'd stopped breathing. His eyes at her, those green eyes, saturated like a cat's in the shade of emerald and macrolite and holly green. Say it, she told him. Tell me how you can get along without me, Stefan. Tell me. She never got a chance to finish her sentence. She was cut off when his mouth descended on hers.
A little smoochy smooch.
A little smoochy smooch.
Smoochy smooch. I like it. Good episode. I meant chapter.
I mean, technically we're filming an episode, so I guess it's a good episode too.
It is.
Not a whole lot.
Alaric.
Yeah, I know. So I guess that's kind of a big deal. I was about to say that nothing really happened, but I guess that is kind of a big deal.
Yes. Just one word, one name.
I love Alaric.
And I loved him in the TV show. I like his character in the TV show, so I'm hoping it stays pretty true to that. I think he's a good, character to have. I like it.
He's just very down to earth, and
I think he's closest to normal out of everybody. Yeah. And I think that's why I get so excited when I see him in the TV show. He's most relatable, I think.
Yeah, and he's just very calm and
level-headed.
Level-headed. So whenever Elena has a problem, it's one of those I don't know, guru moments. Yeah. She'll go and talk to him. I mean, Alaric obviously has some issues that he's working through. He was in the TV show working through too, and I'm sure that he'll have those issues in this one.
Because nobody's perfect.
Nobody's
not
perfect.
Even monsters.
So even Alaric had some issues that he would get angry about and not think clearly, but for the most part, he was the level-headed,
easygoing.
Yeah.
Person.
Which is what it kind of sounds like in here. His first day of teaching, he goes and he sits them down and wants to know
what happened.
But I think if he is taking the vampire hunter standpoint, that maybe it was a test to see who was there that night.
And he's keeping track.
And then I think because you have to be invited in the house, I bet you it's a trap to see who
can't come in
or doesn't show up.
Yeah, I think that's telling to everything for him.
Yeah.
Who he needs to watch out for, who's potential for killing people.
Yeah.
So